Hey babes, hello and welcome or welcome back to another chapter of The Irregulars. If you are brand new here, a couple of things for you. One, I am on chapter 6 of book 2 of my Northwest Uprising series. So you may want to at least start with the beginning of this, or preferably start with the Rebels. And two, again, if you're new here and you'll hear me say it again if you watch my videos, I don't edit these videos because I read them out loud for a friend who needs audiobooks. But because I can't afford to make audiobooks, I read them and I leave the mistakes in because she thinks it's funny. And until she tells me to knock it off, I'm keeping it up. I'm going to not apologize in advance, but just let you know. So, without further ado, this is chapter 6 of The Irregulars, which is book 2 in the Northwest Uprising Trilogy. It's another round of LA TV, streaming all day, every day. Let's look back on the highlights of the last 24 hours for those of you who missed it. A fresh water war between the Bloods and the hipsters in Whittier, and the masters in Pasadena have just heard about the weapon supply the Protestants have stocked. Major Drama Channel. I sat in the useless room, poring over maps one last time. We were set to leave in the morning, and as always, I couldn't leave the maps alone. A quiet, easily agitated man called Photograph found me there, knocking lightly on the door. His fingers danced restlessly over the camera hanging around his neck. Where he'd found it, I had no idea, but the thing used film. We didn't know where he'd gotten that either. Amana just said he'd gone exploring in the lair and come back with the camera, and I'd never seen him without film yet. I watched him leaning my hip against the table. I'd learned you couldn't rush him. He had to do things in his own time. Finally, he found his voice. "Captain, we should take a photo of the fighters." "Not a bad idea. Why?" We need to remember. All of us. All of this. And I want to go with you. Someday. Not now." He fidgeted, flipped some things on the camera, and went still, watching me from the corner of his eye. Okay. Deciding to leave his wish to go into the field aside for the moment, I picked the one I could handle. "When do you want to take this picture?" "Today? Now?" He started towards the door. "Sun's out." "Well, in that case, everyone would probably be outside already enjoying the sunshine." "Let's go," I said when it became apparent that he was absolutely going to get those pictures now. Less than an hour later, everyone was piled into the meadow. Sunlight glittered on the snow, making me squint. Everyone treated this like a giant play date. Snowball fights broke out, and a group of younger ones, led by Mouse, began building a snowman on the mound. Photograph decided he wanted pictures of each group: scavengers, perimeter guards, hunters, and the essential non-combatants who stayed at the lair. We had fun teasing whoever was up for their group shot, making faces and trying to mess them up. Finally, it was the fighters' turn. "Photo, you want us to split into our smaller groups?" Phoenix asked. "What do you mean?" "Well, we have the scouts, the snipers, the bashers, and explosives." "Basher?" Driver asked. "How have I never heard of this before? I thought you all did the same thing." "Bashers are people like Captain," Phoenix explained, grinning. "Basically, she hits men very hard until they fall down. You should see it sometime. It's a lot of fun." "Wait," I protested. "We should get at least one with all of us together." "All together, then," Photo said decisively. "Please." We piled together at the edge of the meadow on the slope, pine trees liberally covered in snow rising behind us. Someone, probably Phoenix, shoved me to the front of the group, and I slammed into Archangel. He grunted, stumbling a little. Sorry, I mumbled, turning pink. "All good here." He smiled, those gorgeous deep blue eyes so close. The man was barely taller than me, which meant that all I'd have to do was lean forward a few inches to kiss him. I bit my lip to stop myself doing something I probably wouldn't regret that much, and watched his eyes drop to focus on my mouth. Phoenix slammed into me, laughing and throwing me into Archangel's arms. "Sorry," I gasped, clutching his jacket. There were too many layers between us for me to feel his warmth, but who needed it when I was burning up inside? He kept one hand on my back as we turned to face the poor man trying to take a dignified photo of us. There'd been several flashes already, and now he stood with a white-knuckled grip on his camera, his face twisted in a grimace. "Please stand still?" "Oh, I don't know." Lavender watched us from the sides, her hands on her hips. "This seems entirely accurate to me. Unruly, unpredictable, and highly entertaining." "Please?" Poor Photo looked so distressed. "Okay, people," I called, taking pity on the man. "Straighten up." Phoenix slung her arm over my shoulder and across my chest, her other one wrapped around Griffin, laughing as she nudged me against Archangel. If I got any closer to him, I'd be crawling inside his clothes. Which was a very pleasant thought in retrospect. Archangel slid his hand down to my waist and leaned into me, too. Photograph brightened as he looked through the camera lens. "Look at me, please." I focused on him and the camera flashed. "Knock their socks off," Phoenix whispered. "Fuck you," I whispered back. Everyone gathered in the garage, ready to go out for a couple months and draw Steve back into the valley. I stood in the center of the group, panic sparking through my chest, making it hard to breathe. It being the first time going with both fighters and soldiers, I had to say something to them, and my brain wasn't coughing any ideas up. How the hell had I ended up here? I'd barely graduated high school. Most of what I knew came out of books. Fake it till you make it. The words drifted across my mind, Kitten's voice sounding clearly. Terrible advice, but the best I had under the circumstances. The fighters slowly separated from their loved ones, tears giving way to restless energy. It needed to be redirected because this would be the longest we'd ever been away from the calm, steadying presence of the non-coms. I needed fighters to do what was right, not what was easy. I needed them to fight and kill. Mostly, I needed them to still be human at the end. Half an idea flashed across my mind and I went with it, not bothering to check and see where this might take me. "All in, all out!" I shouted. "One shot, one kill!" they roared. "No luck, all skill!" "The old Constitution gave our founders the right to bear arms," I yelled when they'd quieted. "An armed, well-regulated, trained militia. It was to prevent any government from enslaving them. I reckon it's time to resurrect that." I had to raise my voice to be heard over the occasional whistle or cheer. "We've got the training," I pointed to Seahorse, who gave a jaunty wave, and Sarge, who nodded. More cheers and whistles filled the garage, but they quickly quieted. "We have the arms." I pointed to the tunnels, to loud whoops. "Now, what are we fighting for?" "To kick Steve's ass!" "Kill Steve!" a woman shrieked. "Kill them all!" "Kill! Kill! Kill!" It became a chant rising above the crowd. I shook my head, but they weren't listening. Griffin, standing off to the right, gave me an inscrutable look, and Eleanor's dismay was unmistakable as she tried to calm the ones nearest her. The core group, Sirius, Phoenix, Driver, Lavender, Amana, and Seahorse, were trying to regain control, but it wasn't working. They were turning into a mob. Oops. I hunted frantically around the room, hoping for inspiration. I can do the shooty thing and the fighty thing, but apparently my skills at the speechy thing were somewhat lacking. I found my anchor in Archangel. He watched me, dark blue eyes fierce, focused, and urging me on. He was tense, hands clenched as if willing me to figure it out. Exhaling, I gave him a quick nod. He could do this better than me. We both knew it, but these were my people. "No!" I bellowed, leaping into the back of my pickup. "That's not what we're about!" The ones nearest me slowly quieted, waiting to hear more. Some glared as if not wanting to be all about killing people might make me a traitor. "If we fight only to kill, we're no better than Steve. They came to conquer and exterminate." A few still muttered, but the majority were listening. Thankfully. "We're fighting for our families and to regain our homes. We're taking back what they stole." I took a big breath and continued. "This shit's been happening for forever, people. Way back when this country was founded, they said they weren't afraid of the enemy's weapons. We're not afraid of a little fight, are we? No! Like them, back in the day, the only thing I'm afraid of is slavery. They did not fear death, and neither do I. Not fighting, not dying. Hail the victorious dead! Phoenix shouted to cheers. I'll happily die if it means everyone else is freed, I continued. Archangel frowned at my mention of death, but the crowd finally caught on. I'm here to make sure as many of us as possible make it out of here, grow old, have kids, live like we're supposed to. I don't want to fight, but by all that's holy, I will damn well do it if that's what it takes for others to live in peace, because I don't fear death. Instead, we fight so that others can live in peace. We don't make war for war's sake. We're just finishing what Steve started. All in, all out, Phoenix cried, and let them do the rest. One shot, one kill, no luck, all skill. I hoped I had them on the right page, because I had no fucking clue where this would go when I started. The fighters streamed to the cars, and I moved back to make room for the others riding with me. My truck rumbled to life, Dareva's curly-haired silhouette a familiar, comforting sight in the driver's seat. Fuck me! Phoenix leaned her arms on the edge of the truck next to me. You almost lost them! Next time, you're talking. Oh, hell no! She reared back, shaking her head violently. Archangel and Griffin silently joined me in the truck bed. Griffin merely nodded, but Archangel rested a hand on my shoulder. I leaned into the warmth for a moment, hoping he didn't notice the pressure. Fine. Archangel can give the next one. He grinned. There's no way I'd have been able to bring them back from that. I don't believe you, but whatever. They would never have gotten that far if you did it. Archangel shook his head, looking past me. I don't know about that. They've dealt with experiences that I can't relate to. Those women were out for blood, but you brought them back to doing this for others in peace. You got them where they needed to go. The pickup rolled forward, gentle enough that I barely swayed with the motion. As quickly as that, we were off. We spent one night together in a large, spread-out camp in the foothills to the north of the lair. Eleanor settled next to me and pulled her latest project out of her satchel while I tended the stoves. Tiny little fires from stoves or open flame littered the hillside, most of them invisible until you were within a few yards. We'd already gotten out of the snow, and everything here was cold and damp. Your speech was interesting. I especially like those elements from the Revolutionary War, she said, her hands moving quickly over her mending. I especially noted that bit where you paraphrased John Hancock. What? I glanced up. You got that? You're not the only one who reads. I borrowed your books, remember? Oh, yeah. After a long pause where all I could hear was water dripping from the trees and the occasional small crack of a branch, she continued. Did you know that people have been going to ink with specific requests today? Tattoos they want to get when we're back at the lair. The most common one, she paused to look at me directly, is peace. I let out a slow breath. Not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting that. Between peace and that whole all-in, all-out stuff, we have a motto and a purpose. Don't you think it's time we had a name? Shit. I scrubbed a hand over my face. No, I mean, we're an irregular military unit, I think. Why do we need a name? Solidarity. Aren't military units given names like Charlie Company? Finished mending the hat, she put it on and pulled out a sock with a hole in the heel and a pair of fine knitting needles. Hell if I know. We got some soldier boys we could ask. I had a moment of inspiration. You know what? Fudge. Tradition. Why don't you come up with a name? She nodded slowly, tucking away her knitting. I think I'll ask for a bit of help then. She smiled, rose, and wandered to another fire to continue being the mother we all needed right now. When she returned, right before I turned in, she had a name. We've decided on the Oregonian Irregulars, she told the small group in our circle, and they want to keep that whole all in, all out as our motto. Shaking my head, I rolled up in my blanket. Just past midnight, I got up for my shift on guard duty. I'd managed to get Sirius to put me with my brother, and we walked the perimeter slowly, chatting quietly. I like the Irregulars, he said. The Where did Eleanor come up with that? I shrugged, watching the forest. Something about how the English were called regulars, like regular army during the Revolution, and the American militias were irregular because they didn't follow the rules. We should just call ourselves the Irregulars. It's easier. Why not the Oregonians? That's a newspaper, so no. I laughed quietly. Fair enough. Though, having two names might help confuse Steve, make them think there's more of us than there is. I snorted. Yeah, less than 60 fighters wasn't a scary amount by anyone's count. Then again, this time last year we'd just been 5. The rest of our shift passed quietly, talking about Grace and Charlie, and about what he'd been up to for the last year. The military was finally deployed on American soil, and it was as shitty as I'd always imagined it would be. They'd been brought in to help with the fallout from the bombings, relocating folks who were out of town when their homes were invaded or blown up. Good times. Once inside the valley, we split into 2 groups. Seahorse and Sergeant Perry taking half the fighters south, while I took the rest north. Down here, everything dripped. A light misting rain drifted down, beating on clothing and hair. I had my beanie firmly pulled down over my ears. I was still dry, but then again, I had one of those rainproof jackets. We couldn't use too many of them with their bright colors, but the ones that were nice and dark were used to augment the jackets left in our stores. Seahorse's dark eyes were somber when she met me on foot, in between our 2 convoys. She looked comfortable in her too big camo jacket, like the soldier she used to be. Give 'em hell, I said quietly, but nothing too stupid. Run if you have to. Away, you mean? She smiled slightly, her hands comfortably resting on her weapons. Only if you promise to do the same. I don't know what you're talking about. I lifted my chin, looking down my nose at her. I perform strategic retreats. Occasionally, screaming is involved. Seahorse laughed. Ah, so that's what that is. We watched each other in silence for a moment before she leaned in. I pressed my forehead to hers, our thick-knit hats protecting our heads. She rested her hands on my forearms. Mine cupped her elbows as we stayed there for a minute. Okay, she whispered, her breath puffing warm over my face. Yeah, I pulled away. It's time. After one last glance, she turned away and walked to her truck, circling her hand in the air. Time to go, kids! I hopped in the back of my pickup at the front of the convoy. Dereva had the engine running, watching the southbound crew leave through her rearview mirror. Do you think we'll see them again? I reckon so. I watched them leave. Perry had my brother with him because he was too young to send with someone else. I couldn't say a damn thing about why I wanted to keep that particular soldier near me. Sirius had volunteered to go with the southern group, in part to keep an eye on him. They know what they're doing. Better than me, anyway. Let's go, I called, waving for the whole convoy to see. Behind me, vehicles rumbled to life while my little truck rolled forward. Thank you so much for joining me for Chapter 6 of the Irregulars. I will be back again next week with Chapter 7. And if you're interested, if you enjoyed this, do please like, comment, subscribe. Everything helps the chapter grow, and maybe if I get enough people interested in these, I can actually get professional audiobooks done. That would be kind of amazing. But because I want to hire actual human narrators, and I think I would need at least 2, I mean, I might be able to get away with 1. But I want to hire human narrators and not use crappy AI, so that does take significantly more. So I hope if you enjoyed this, you'll go and share, and please, please remember that a lot of the things you like the least is probably me and my reading. So yeah, again, if you enjoyed this, please like, comment, subscribe, share it, let people know. Thank you so much. I will see you again next week.